For this project, any category 4 yarn will work, but I used 3/4 of a skein of Lion Brand's Pound of Love in the color Oxford Grey. As for tools, a 6.5mm hook, a 5mm hook, scissors, stitch markers, tape measure, and a tapestry needle. There's an optional written pattern that can help out too. Link in the description if you'd like to grab that and follow along. We're using 4 stitches for this project and they will be as follows: chain, slip stitch, single crochet, and double crochet. This tutorial is for a size small, but you can adjust it for your size and we explain how to in the video, so let's get started. Getting these bottoms started, we're first going to grab our category 4 yarn, make a slip knot, grab our 5mm hook, and start off by making a chain that comes out to the size of the waistband that you guys want. I want the height of my waistband to be about 1.5 inches or 4 centimeters, and that is roughly 6 chains. Once we have our chain, what we're going to do from here is go in with a row of double crochet. So what we're going to do is start off by blocking off that last chain that we just made, do a chain up of 3 that counts as a double crochet. We're going to prepare for a double crochet, and then insert our hook into that loop that we blocked off, or the 4th loop from our hook, with a double crochet. Let's do the next double crochet together, prepare for a double crochet, into this next available loop that we have, go in with a double crochet, and keep doing this all the way down your chain. Now that we've gone down with our first row of double crochet, we're going to go down with more rows of double crochet, but going in through the back loops. So to start up the next row, we're going to do a chain up of 3, flip our work, prepare for a double crochet, insert our hook into that next loop, making sure that we're going in through that back loop with a double crochet. And we're going to keep doing this all the way down until we get to the end of this row. Once we get to the end of this row, we're going to do another chain up of 3 and then go back down with back loop double crochets. And then we're going to keep doing this until this becomes the length that we need for it to become, so that it can fit around the widest part of our hips and start to make our drawstring. So this is what things should kind of be looking like once we have our waistband all finished up. I have a total of 58 rows, or this in total comes out to 29 inches or 72 centimeters, but keep in mind that this does stretch quite a bit. That's why we're using this stitch that we're using. But once when we have this, we're actually just going to sandwich the 2 ends that we have together and then go in with a row of outside loop single crochets to close this off. Since our hook is still attached into one end, this part's going to be fairly simple. We're just going to grab the other end and also make sure that the waistband isn't twisted. But all we're going to do is insert our hook into this corner loop that we have right here. Once when it's in there, we're going to yarn over, pull through everything. And we're now going to be going in with our outside loop single crochets. So all that is for the front panel, the one that's closest to us, we're going to be going in through the front loop. And for the back panel, the one that's furthest away from us, we're going to be going into that back loop so that we can have just a little bit of ribbing along the front. So all that is inserting our hook into that first available loop in the front panel. We're going to insert our hook into that front loop and then into the same loop that we have into the back panel. We're going to go in through that back loop just like that. Once when our hook is through both, we're going to single crochet. Let's do the next one together. Into this front panel, go in through the front loop, into the back panel, go in through the back loop, single crochet. And we're going to keep doing this all the way down. Now that we have our row of outside loop single crochets out of the way, the next thing we're going to do is just go along this bottom edge that we have with a row of single crochets. So it's going to be fairly simple. All we're going to do is do a chain up of 1. We're going to open up our work. And then also, as you guys can see, we went in through the outside loop so that we can have this little bit of ribbing along right here, but that's just for preference. But to get back to the single crochet row, just into each of these side double crochets, we're going to be going in with 2 single crochets. So into this first side double crochet gap, I'm going to go in with 1 and 2 single crochet. Let's do the next one together. I'm going to go in with 1 and 2. And as you guys can probably tell, I am hiding in my tail as I go, but I didn't mention anything because you guys may not have ended on this side. You guys may not have a tail where you guys are working. But if you want to, you guys can. It's basically just holding down your tail over your work so that it can be hidden in through the single crochet that we're just doing. But go ahead and put 2 single crochet into every loop that we have, going all the way down. Once we reach back to this first loop that we made for ourselves, we're going to insert with a slip stitch. Okay, so we have just made it all the way around with our row of single crochet along the bottom. And as you guys can see, I have also went in with some stitch markers, and this is going to be for each individual pant leg that we're going to have. And these are going to be a little bit high waisted pants on me. So what I did was I counted all the loops that I just made with our single crochet row, and then I have inserted my stitch markers right where the middle portion is, and then this first chain that we're going to make is going to start right in the middle. This is going to be done up kind of the same way that we did the palazzo pants that we have on the channel, palazzo pants with pockets. Check that out if you guys haven't already. But we're basically just going to work along the length and then work towards this way until we get to this next stitch marker, having one pant leg done. Do the same thing on the other side, and then we will combine them from there. But once when we have all of that figured out, what we're going to do is take out our 5mm hook and insert our 6.5mm hook, because we want this to be a little bit thicker so that it can stretch and also comfier, because this is going to be kind of tight. But once when we have that, we're going to want to try this on and put this where you want the waistband to be when you actually wear it. Mine's going to be a little bit higher, like I said, so I measured out the length of my leg, and I'm going to make a chain that comes out to 33 inches or 84 centimeters, and that is around 110 chains. So I'm going to make that chain amount right now, but keep in mind that once when you go in with our next row of slip stitches, it will shrink up quite a bit. So I would say make your chain just a little bit longer than it needs to be. And I actually don't have a way on how to gauge how much it'll shrink, because it honestly just all depends. So this may have to be a little trial and error for you guys. I'm really sorry if it is, but a tip that I do have for you guys is that with your initial chain, try to keep it as tight as possible, because that'll eliminate the shrinkage that will happen. But this next part is super easy. Like I said, we're just going to start off by making a chain of whatever amount we need, and then I'll meet you guys back so that we can start up our next row. Now that we have our chain that is the length of our pant leg, what we're going to do from here is just go all the way up with slip stitches. So all we're going to do is block off that last chain, go in with a chain up of 1, and then into that loop that we blocked off, or the second chain from our hook, we're going to go in with a slip stitch, and all that is inserting your hook. We're going to yarn over, pull through everything that's on the hook. Let's do one more together. Insert into that next loop, yarn over, pull through everything. And we're just going to keep doing this all the way up our chain until we get to the base, and then we're going to slip stitch into the base and keep going from there. So I'll meet you guys back once when this row is all finished up. We've just made our way all the way down with our first row of slip stitches, and we are back at the base, and the next thing that we're going to have to do is close off this row that we just did. So how we do that is we're going to slip stitch into that next available loop, but we want to make sure that we're working in the correct direction. So all we're going to do is go in, well, I've already marked mine off. I'm not going to be going in through this way, but in order to close this off, I'm going to insert my hook into that next available loop, yarn over, pull through with a slip stitch, and now this first row that we just did is now closed off. And then next, in order to work our way up to the next row, we're going to insert our hook into that next available loop with a slip stitch, flip our work, and then we're going to be going in with more slip stitches, but this will be back loop slip stitches. So into that first back loop, we're going to insert our hook, yarn over, pull through everything. Into that next back loop, yarn over, pull through everything. And keep doing this all the way down, and then once when you guys reach the end of this row, chain up 1, flip your work, and do more back loop slip stitches. And then once when you guys get to the base, go ahead and connect into the base the same way that we just did. So as a quick recap, once we work our way back, we're going to slip stitch into that next available loop that we have in our base just to close off that row. And then in order to work our way up to the next row, slip stitch up the next available loop and then go back down with back loop slip stitches. And we're going to keep going back and forth like that all the way until this side of our pant leg is all finished up. So we are back, and we should have something that looks a little bit like this so far. And I have made my way from one stitch marker, this is where we started with our initial chain, all the way down to this next stitch marker that we have. This is basically just 1/2 of our waistband that we just made for ourselves. And so when I get here, I just have one more loop to go into until I get to the stitch marker. So into that stitch marker loop, I'm going to insert, take that stitch marker out, yarn over, pull through, chain up 1 and cut. And then when we have this side done, we're going to do the same exact thing to this other side. So super simple. We're just going to start it off together. We're going to take out this next stitch marker, and then into that loop that the stitch marker was in, we're going to insert our hook, grab our yarn, make a slip knot, insert that onto our hook, and then go off, and then start off by making a chain that comes out to the same chain length that we started with, and then keep going back and forth with back loop slip stitches, all while connecting into the base until we reach this next stitch marker, and then I'll meet you guys back. Okay, so we are back. We have just finished up doing our second pant leg, and we have actually finished up doing the first one as well. So we're going to be speaking on this. And for this next part, we're going to have to do some measuring and inserting our stitch marker, and these measurements are specifically tailored for me. So please keep in mind that the number count and the measurements that I will be giving you guys may not apply to everyone. So you guys are definitely going to want to try these on and measure these out for yourself. But like I said, the first thing that we're going to have to do is actually try these on, and we're going to need to measure out 2 things. And don't worry, I know that when you try these on, they're going to end up looking like some gauchos, but they'll be tights, I promise. So the first thing that we're going to need to measure out is actually the bottom towards where the calf is. So what I did was, while I was wearing it, I know that it's not connected, but I kind of just pinched the inside where the seam would be all the way up until it got a little bit tighter, not uncomfortably tight. This is maybe about where my knee is, but on the side of my knee, because this is the inside of your leg. And then I inserted my stitch marker there, and then from there we're going to want to put the stitch marker in there, because we're going to need to do a little, I guess, increasing, not technically, but increasing, so that it can come out a little bit further for our thighs. So just to let you guys know, the measurement that I have from the bottom of my pant leg to where I inserted my stitch marker is 10.5 inches or 27 centimeters, or roughly 40 loops. Remember, this may not work for you. And then the second thing that we're going to need to do is figure out where our middle connector is going to be. So basically where the front connects to the back. And I have measured mine out, and from here down to where I have my stitch marker is about 8 inches or 20 centimeters, or roughly 30 loops. So you guys are going to have to figure that out for yourselves. But when we have this one all figured out, we're just going to go in with a seam. So just a row of single crochet going all the way up, making sure that our front panel and our back panel are intertwining together. So basically the same way that we connected our band. But we're just going to get this next part started off together really quick. So just to start these off, what we're going to do is insert our hook into this front panel's last loop, the corner loop, and then also into the back panel's corner loop. Insert our yarn onto our hook, pull through, chain up 1 to secure, and then once we have that, we're going to single crochet going all the way up to our stitch marker. So let's do the first one together. Into the next available loop that we have into the front panel, we're going to insert our hook, and then into the next available loop that we have in the back panel, we're going to insert our hook into that, and then single crochet from there. And we're going to keep doing this all the way down until we reach our stitch marker. Once we do that, we're going to chain up 1 and cut, and then I'll meet you guys back so that we can do this funky looking increase portion together. Okay, so we're back, and we have just seamed up, I guess, this bottom half of our pant leg, and what we're going to do is actually just, I guess, kind of dissect it. So just open it up like this just so we can take a look at it really, really quickly. So the next thing that we're going to do is actually just go in with more back loop slip stitches, but we're going to be going in a V pattern. and it's going to keep going back and forth like this, and this is to help expand this outward. As you guys can see right here, this looks kind of nuts, but help expand this outward for our thigh, because this is obviously significantly bigger than our calves. And it's going to be fairly easy, just all back loop slip stitches. Once when we get to this corner, our first one is going to be a decrease of 3. Work our way back up to this next portion that we have on the other side. That's the same amount of loops that I have the stitch marker in here and on here for some reason. And then we're going to keep going back and forth like that until this is big enough for you. And mine is just about 9 rows. Keep in mind that this does stretch quite a bit. But like I said, this is going to be different for everyone. But if you guys need to keep going for however many rows, go for it. This should all work out. But I'm just going to readjust my grip so that I can show you guys what we're going to do. So like I said, since we're here, we're just going to insert our hook in through this back loop, kind of like if everything was normal, like we didn't have to cut and tie at any point. We're going to insert into this back loop and then go down until we have just one loop left right before our bottom seam right here. So let's just start this off together really, really quickly. We're going to take out this stitch marker, insert, still using our 6.5mm hook, insert that guy into that back loop. We're going to pull through, chain up 1 to secure, and then once we have that, we're going to go into that next back loop with another back loop slip stitch. So just yarn over, pull through everything. And then we're going to keep doing that until we have just one loop right before our seam, and then I'll meet you guys back so that we can do that decrease together. So we are back, and we have just gone all the way down with our rows of back loop slip stitches and into this next available loop that we have, into the seam, and then into the next loop that we have on the back panel. We're going to be doing a decrease of 3. So all that is, we're still inserting our hook into that back loop. So into that next back loop, we're going to insert, yarn over, pull through. We should have 2 loops on the hook. From there, we're going to go into this first seam loop that we have at the very end. So this is going to be facing a different direction, but that is okay. It'll all work out. We're going to insert our hook into that last seam loop, yarn over, pull through, should have 3 loops on the hook. And then we're going to turn our work just a little bit. And then into that next back loop that we have, we're going to insert, if I can. Okay, so it's in, yarn over, and this is still a slip stitch. So we have just inserted our hook into that last loop. And from here, we're just going to yarn over, pull through everything right away. No more yarning over and pulling through 1. So we're just going to yarn over and pull through 1, 2, 3, 4, yarn over, pull through 4. And that is our decrease. That is to eliminate any gappage that we could have. And then once we have that, continue doing back loop slip stitches, going back up our pant leg to our next stitch marker. Once we get to the next stitch marker, we're actually going to do a chain up of 1, flip our work, do more back loop slip stitches all the way down until we get to about this second loop. As you guys can see, I'm just going to show you guys really quickly. There's a clear divider. So this loop that's in the middle is on this side. This loop that's in the middle is on this side. So we're going to stop right about here. So our third to last loop, because we're going to be doing a decrease of 2 right here. And then we're going to be doing a decrease of 2 right here, and then slip stitching up the rest. So I'll meet you guys back once we get there so that we can do that and then have at it from there. So we've made our way all the way back to our middle section. As you guys can see, I'm in my third to last loop right before we meet the seam. These are our last 2 loops on this side of our pant leg. So what we're going to do is just do a decrease of 2. So we're going to go into this next back loop, insert, yarn over, pull through. Into this next back loop, yarn over, pull through everything on our hook. That is our first decrease. And we're going to adjust our work just a little bit so that we can go into these next 2 loops along the other side of our pant leg. And into these first 2 loops, we are going to be doing another decrease of 2. So into this first available loop, we're going to yarn over, pull through, and then into this next available back loop, if we can. There we go. We should have 3 loops on our hook. We're going to yarn over, pull through all 3. And that is pretty much it. We're just going to keep doing this all the way down, and then I will meet you guys back when we have the amount of rows or length that we need, like I said, just on one side. So I'm just going to show you guys. just on this one side, I will have a total of 9 rows, but you guys can obviously keep extending or make it shorter, whatever you guys need. But when you guys do put this on to make sure that it fits you, make sure that you are, one, extending this all the way because this does stretch quite a bit, and then also that you're taking these two corners and then pinching them together when you wear them, just to make sure that everything is fitting nicely, and then you guys can make it as loose or as baggy as you guys want from there. So I'm just going to keep going back and forth just like this until I have my 9, and I will meet you guys back so that we can do up the rest of this pant. Okie dokie, so I am back and I have my 9 rows of back loop slip stitches while doing decreases into this bottom corner. And now we're just going to connect it the same way that we have connected pretty much everything else so far. So we're just going to do the first one together really quickly. I'm actually just going to adjust my hook and grip really quickly so it's easier to go into. But basically, since we're at a corner, we're just going to insert our hook, insert our yarn onto our hook. You guys don't have to do this part. This is completely optional, all dependent on where you guys end up. But we're going to go in with our seam, but we just want to make sure before we get started that we didn't somehow, some way flip our pants inside out so that the seam is along the inside. We just want all of our seams to be on the same side. But what we're going to do is pull through, chain up 1 to secure, and into this next available loop that we have in the front panel, and then into the next available loop that we have in the back panel, single crochet. And we're going to keep doing this all the way down until we don't have any more loops left to go into, and then we're going to cut and tie, and then you guys, because I cheated and already finished my other leg, you guys are going to go ahead and do your other leg, and I will meet you guys back. Okay, so we are back with our pants. We have pretty much everything sewn up, and now we have a very inappropriate hole left, and all we're going to do is just sew that up completely. And by sew, I mean go in with our seam, with our single crochet seam that we always go in with. And like always, we want to make sure that our seam will be facing the same direction. So as you guys can see, this seam is facing out, this seam is facing out. So now what we're going to do is take this portion, and then we're going to, I guess, close them up together, and then we're going to be going in this way with our seam. We're going to go all the way down to this point, and then we're going to go in with the connectors and then work our way, I'm doing a terrible job at showing you, but working our way around, and then we're going to come up the other way. So this is all going to be one long single crochet. So let's get this started together so that we can make this a little bit more wearable. So we're ready to close up this hole that we have, and what we're going to do is actually first go into this loop that we have in our band. And our band should have these 2 loops that have one pant leg started and then another pant leg started. They're not available, as we like to say, or they're not completely clear of anything in there, but that's fine. We're just going to insert our hook, making sure that we go in through both of them anyways, because we don't want a gap right in between the band and this connector that we're going to go into. So I just inserted my hook into one side and then into the other. We can insert our yarn onto our hook, pull through, this could be a little tight, chain up 1 to secure, and then from here we're going to go in with single crochets, making sure that we go in through the front panel and the back panel. So what we're going to do really quickly, this is going to be outside loop single crochets, and we're going along the outside loops because this is going all the way up and around in between your legs. So there's going to be a little seam there, but we don't want it to be as noticeable. So doing it this way, we're going to leave just a little bit of ribbing for ourselves. So into this first loop that we have, we're going to go into this front panel with a front loop, inserting our hook with a front loop. So into the front panel, we're going to insert our hook into this loop that we have right here, which is the loop that is closest to us, just like that. And then also into this back panel, we're going to be going in through the back loop. So we're going to insert, and then from here, single crochet. We're going to do the next few together just to make sure that we have it. This is the next single crochet loop that we have. So we're going to insert our hook in through the front loop that we have in the front panel, and then into the next loop that we have in the back panel. We're going to insert our hook into that back loop, if we can grab it, into that back loop, insert our hook, and single crochet. We're going to do one more together, into this next available loop, go into this front loop, and then into this next available loop, go into that back loop. Jeez, why is this so hard? And then from there, we're just going to single crochet. And then we're going to keep going all the way down with this pattern until we get to this connector, or where we finish doing our thighs. This is where the top of our thigh portion is. And we're just going to be going in with regular single crochet. There's obviously no loops for us to go into, so we're just going to have to eyeball that and then make our way all the way up and across the other side. I'll meet you guys back just to show you guys what we're doing so it doesn't get a little too confusing. But I'll meet you guys back when we have made our way all the way down these regular loops with single crochets. Okay, so we're back and we just made it all the way down with our single crochet row along one side. This is the front or the back. It's both the same, doesn't matter. But now if we want to separate these guys, we are now at this middle chunk, which is where our thigh extension is, whatever we want to call it. So what we're going to do from here is just sandwich these guys together and then go into each of these, I guess, kind of loops with single crochets. You guys are going to have to eyeball it for yourselves. Just make sure that you guys give yourself enough space in order to make your way down here, because if you, I guess, put the single crochets too sparse, then this won't be able to stretch as much. So what I like to do is just separate it, and then obviously when we count our slip stitch rows, this is 1, this is 2, this is 3, this is 4. So I like to find a row here, insert a single crochet here, find one on top of the second row that we see, find one on top of the third, fourth, fifth. That's what I like to do. You guys can obviously adjust if you guys want to make it look something else, whatever you guys want to make it look like. But I'm going to make my way all the way across, and then once we get over here, we're just going to pinch these sides together and then work up with outside loop single crochets again until we don't have any more loops left to go into, and then we're going to cut and tie. So we've just made our way all the way around this middle portion that we have of our pants, and we are ready to cut and tie, but we're going to end this off the same way that we started this off. So now we're going to need to take a look at where these two loops are, where our two pant loops meet. If we don't connect it into those two loops, we will have a gap that's just about this size, and we don't want that. So what we're going to do, we could just insert our hook into those two loops. The easiest way to do it is to just, well, one, figure out where they are, which are these two loops right here. We can just sandwich them together, insert our hook, making sure that it's going in through both of the loops. Here's 1, here's 2. And then we're going to single crochet. Once we have that, we're going to chain up 1 and cut. And then next, get your 5mm hook ready, because we will be working on the bottom cuff. So working on this bottom cuff is actually going to be fairly simple. It's going to be the same way that we do every cuff, and also the same stitch that we did for this one, just with a 5mm hook. But right before we go in with that, we're going to need to go all the way around with a single crochet row first, just so that our cuff has something to hang on to. So what I'm going to do is insert my hook into any one of these loops that's somewhere near the seam, insert my yarn onto my hook, pull through, chain up 1 to secure, and then once we have that, we will be going in with 1 single crochet into every kind of ish loop that we have. But the tip that I have for this section is that we do want this to be cinched in a little bit. So just like how we did for the connecting piece right here, we're not going to be going into every row that we have. I'm actually going to be skipping. So the easiest way that I found how to do this is to eyeball and see the ribbing that is facing us. So obviously this one's facing us, this one's facing us, this one's facing us. We're going to we're going to spread those apart. And then we're going to be going into these big loops that we have right in between those guys. So I'm just going to spread that, insert, single crochet. Let's do the next one together. We're going to separate these two. This is that loop, single crochet, and we're just going to keep doing this all the way around. Once we reach the end, we are going to slip stitch, but we won't have to cut and tie because we're just going to go straight in with our cuff. But grab your 5mm hook because we're going to be using that in the next clip. So we are back with our single crochet row for the cuff, and we have slip stitched into that first loop that we made for ourselves. And like I said, we're going to be switching out our 6.5mm for our 5mm. And then once we have that, we are going to need to figure out how long we want our cuff to be. And mine's going to be about 5 inches or 13 centimeters. I want these to not quite be at my ankle, just a little bit above it. So that's going to come out to about 20 chains. We now have our chain up of 20. What we're going to do from here is block off that last chain to a chain up of 1, slip stitch into that second loop from our hook, or the one that we blocked off with our thumb. And this is going to be exactly the same way that we have done our body. We're just going to talk this through with each other really quickly. We're going to do slip stitches all the way down. Once we get down to the base, we're going to slip stitch into the next available loop to close off that row. And then we're going to slip stitch up the next loop, flip our work, and then work back down with back loop slip stitches. So 100% exactly the same as this portion. We're going to keep doing that all the way around until we don't have any more loops left to go into. Once when we have that, we'll meet each other back so that we can connect it all together. We are back and we have just finished up doing our leg cuff. And from here, we just need to seam this up. We're just going to do the first one together since we've done this a bajillion times. We already know how to do it. But once we get here, we're going to insert our hook in through this first available loop that we have. And just as a quick note, we are not going to be going in through the outside loops. We're just going to be going in through both loops that we have when it comes to these regular loops that we just made for ourselves. So into this first available loop, we're going to insert our hook into there and then into the next available loop that we have in our back panel, insert into there, and then single crochet. And keep doing this all the way down. Once we reach the end, we are going to cut and tie, and then you guys can go ahead and do your other cuff on your other pant leg. Okay, so we are back. We have flipped everything right side out. So as you guys can see, the seams are all along the inside, and we tried it on. Everything is looking perfect. And the last thing that we have to do is optional, but also not really optional because it's pockets. But what we're going to need to do is once when it's on, we're going to need to do a bit of measuring. This is going to be 100% different for each person. But while it's on, you're going to want to figure out where you want the pockets to be along your thigh. And I've already measured mine out. And the way that I did it, I just kind of eyeballed it at first. And then once when I took it off, sat down, that's when I did all the counting. But from this middle connector right here, I just kind of eyeballed it all the way across, and then I inserted my first stitch marker around the spot where I wanted my pocket to start. And then I also went down around the length of my pocket that I want it to be. And both sides are exactly the same, so I'm just going to be talking about one side for now. And then from there, I did go around my thigh, and then this entire portion will be where my pocket is. And this looks really small, but remember that this does stretch quite a bit while you're wearing it, and I want this to be able to fit my phone, and my phone is a little bit on the bigger side. That's why my pocket is this dimension, plus a little bit of my phone will be able to stick out as well, and that is what I wanted. So I'll give you guys my measurements and my numbers, but you guys can and will probably have to adjust when I give that to you. But the first thing I'm going to say is when I eyeballed this and then measured all the way to where I wanted the corner of the top of my pocket to be. Once when I was wearing it, this was about 8 inches or 20 centimeters or roughly 25 rows in. And then once when I had my 25 rows, I counted down about 21 loops, and that came out to 5 inches or 13 centimeters. So that is one side of my pocket. And this was all on, by the way. But for the, rest of my pocket, I counted over 13 rows and then just inserted my stitch marker into the same loops as the first 2 stitch markers that we inserted them into. So I went into the same loop over here, counted down 21, and then into the same loop over here. And then if you guys want, I counted from the first loop that I have over here, so right where the bottom band is as well, and I went down about 30 loops. And then this pocket size, once when I was wearing it, sorry, I completely forgot, but this pocket size was about 3.5 inches wide or 9 centimeters. But once when we have all of those numbers known, we're also going to do the other side. The other side should be fairly easy. It's the same exact thing as we have over here. And then we can go in with our pocket. So the first thing that we're going to do is see how many loops we have in between our top and our bottom stitch markers, and then we're going to make a chain for that length. So this may be different for everyone, but like I said, I had a total of 21 loops, so I'm going to go in with a total of 21 chains, and then I'll meet you guys back. We are back with our chain of the length of our top and our bottom stitch markers. Once we have that, we're going to block off that last chain, do a chain up of 1, and we're working with our 6.5mm hook, by the way, because the body of our pant is with a 6.5mm hook. But after we have our chain up of 1, we're going to insert our hook into that loop that we blocked off, or the second chain from our hook, with a slip stitch. And we're going to be slip stitching all the way down, just putting 1 slip stitch into every loop, and then once we get to the end, we're going to do a chain up of 1 and then decrease, because this pocket is going to have a nice little decreasing detail to it. So I'll meet you guys back when we get to the end of this chain. We have our first row of slip stitches for our pocket, and like I said, we're going to do a chain up of 1, flip our work. We're going to go into the next 2 back loops that we have with a decrease. So we're going to insert our hook into that first back loop, yarn over, pull through, and then into the next, yarn over, pull through everything on the hook since this is a slip stitch, and that is our decrease. And then from here, we're going to be working down the rest of our work that we have with just back loop slip stitches. Once we reach the end, we're going to do a chain up of 1, flip our work, and then when we're working our way back up, we will not be decreasing again because we're only going to be decreasing into every other set. So we're going to work our way back up, not doing any decreases. So I'll just meet you guys back once we reach this end again, just so I can remind you guys, and then we'll move on from there. So we are back with this row, and I did leave the last 2 loops just to show you guys that we will not be decreasing into them. So what we're going to do is insert our hook into that back loop, slip stitch, next back loop, slip stitch, and then from here we're going to do a chain up of 1, flip our work, and then do more regular back loop slip stitches. We will not be doing a decrease just yet. We're going to work down with back loop slip stitches. Once we get to the end, do a chain up of 1, work our way back with back loop slip stitches, and then we will be doing a decrease. So the rows are going to be decrease, 1, 2, 3 rows of regular back loop slip stitches, no decreases, and then into that 4th row, decrease. And we're doing it that way so that our decrease doesn't get too low, because we do want this to be able to hold things into the pocket. So by doing that, we're maintaining the decrease and keeping it just a little bit more shallow. So we're going to keep doing that until we have the same amount of rows that we have in between our stitch markers. Like I said, I have 13, so I will meet you guys back once we have that all finished up. Okay, so we're back really quickly just so I can show you guys what the decreases are looking like. I know I don't have my second decrease, but we're going to do it together. But just as a quick reminder, this first row that we have was regular back loops. This ribbing row that we can see right here was our decrease. And then we have 1, 2, 3 rows of regular back loop slip stitches. And now we're going to do our decrease. So from here, we're going to do a chain up of 1, flip our work, and then into these first 2 back loops, we're going to decrease. So into that next back loop, yarn over, pull through. Next back loop, yarn over, pull through everything, and that is our next decrease. And now, that is it. I'll meet you guys back once we have the correct amount of rows so that we can connect it to the pants together. So we are back, and we have the perfect amount of rows for our pocket. As you guys can see, I have already done one of mine. We're about to do this up together. But no matter where you end, either on the top or on the bottom, we're going to be going in with a row of single crochet along both. So you guys don't have to cut and tie. You guys can just continue on from wherever you're at and then just do the same thing on the other end. But the one thing that we're going to have to do is make sure that we have the same amount of single crochet loops as we have rows. So I have 13, like I said earlier. And so we're going to make sure that we end up with 13 loops up on top and along the bottom. And how we're going to do that is do a chain up of 1. And then you guys know this first divot that we have right here, that counts as a loop. So right above that, there should be a little kind of loop up here. We're going to go into there with 1. And then into this row that's facing us, the little rib that we have, we're going to find a loop. There's not really going to be a good one for us to go to. We just have to find one and commit. And then single crochet. And then we're going to keep doing this all the way down, making sure that we're going in through all the necessary loops. Once we make it to the end, we are going to cut and tie and then do the same thing along the bottom or top, wherever you guys are at. And then from there, cut and tie as well, and then we can sew in our pocket. So we are back and we have our little pocket chunk. This looks nuts, but it stretches, trust me. But what we're gonna do next is figure out how we want our pocket to lay. So since this does come in at a diagonal, you guys are gonna want to figure out, do you guys want the highest point towards you or do you want the lowest point towards you? That is completely up to you. The only tip that I have for you guys, because I'm gonna leave you guys, I don't have any real tips on how to sew it in. The only tip that I do have for you guys is start at the highest point. Doesn't matter if it's in the front or in the back of the pant, but we're doing it this way so that we can go all the way in with our tapestry needle. Going along the bottom, we don't need to cut and tie, and then come all the way up. And then once we get up to this corner, we can just cut and tie so that we don't need to count and do anything fancy. So the way that I did it is, I believe this is the front. Yes, I put in a stitch marker so I know where the front is. So how I did it was that I made sure that the lowest point was facing outwards, so facing out towards me as I walk towards someone. And then when we have figured that out, we're just gonna go in with our tapestry needle, sewing it in, making sure that we're going in through the same row and then in through the same loops along the bottom. I'm sorry that I don't have any real tips for you guys. I'm just not a sewer. I'm not good at this. So we're just gonna go in. I'll meet you guys back and then we'll go on from there. So we are back and we have just finished up going in with both of our pockets. This looks really crazy, but you'll see in just a second how cute this is on. But the last thing that we have to do is just go in with a regular chain to just make a drawstring that can go all the way around and fit around you, and also leave a little bit of a tail so that you can tie it in. And then once we have that, weave in all of your ends and then we are all done. We've woven in our ends and have just finished the cutest and warmest pair of leggings. There was plenty of trial and error when it came to how to do the thighs, but it turned out perfect. I'm so happy with how these turned out, and if you guys are too, give this video a thumbs up and let us know what you liked about it. But if you didn't like it, give it a thumbs down and let me know how we can improve. If you love it, be sure to hit that bell so you know when there's new uploads. Be sure to share us on Twitter, Pinterest, Instagram, and Facebook, links down below. If you want to buy this piece or any other piece on the channel, links to Poshmark, Depop, and Etsy are down there too, along with the tools used. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see y'all in the next one.